You went to HR because something was wrong. Maybe your boss was retaliating against you. Maybe a coworker was creating a hostile environment. Maybe you were being treated differently than everyone else, and you had proof. You sat in that office. You told the truth. You were calm. You were professional. You brought documentation, and then nothing happened. Or worse, something did happen, but it happened to you. Suddenly, your boss was colder. Meetings got shorter. Your projects got reassigned. And when you followed up with HR, they said they looked into it and the matter was resolved. But nothing was resolved. You just stopped being able to talk about it. This is the part nobody explains to you before your first job. HR does not work for you. HR works for the company, and most of the time, the company's interests and your interests are not the same thing. That doesn't mean every HR person is evil. Most of them went into the field because they genuinely wanted to help people. But the structure they operate in doesn't allow that to be their primary function. Their primary function is risk management, and risk doesn't mean what you think it means. When you file a complaint, HR doesn't ask, "Is this person being treated unfairly?" They ask, "Does this situation expose the company to legal liability?" Those are very different questions. And most situations, even genuinely toxic ones, don't meet the legal threshold that forces HR to act against a manager. Think about it from their perspective. Your boss controls a team, manages a budget, delivers results, and has relationships with other leaders. You are one employee. When HR weighs the disruption of investigating and potentially disciplining your boss against the disruption of your complaint going unresolved, the math almost always favors protecting the manager. Not because your complaint isn't valid, because acting on it is expensive. Investigating a manager means interviewing witnesses. It means creating documentation that could be used in a lawsuit. It means involving legal counsel. It means potentially embarrassing a senior leader. It means the manager might retaliate, creating more problems. It means other managers start worrying they could be next, which makes them less cooperative with HR in the future. All of that versus doing nothing and hoping you eventually either accept the situation or leave. Most companies choose the second option, not in writing, not officially, but in practice. Here's how this usually plays out. You file a complaint. HR schedules a meeting. They listen carefully. They take notes. They say things like, "Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we take these matters seriously." And they mean it in the moment. But then the investigation begins. The first person they talk to is your manager, and your manager has a different story. Maybe they say you've been underperforming. Maybe they say you've been difficult. Maybe they acknowledge the situation but frame it differently, and now HR has two stories, yours and your boss's. And in the absence of clear policy violation or illegal behavior, they default to the person who has more organizational power. Not because they're corrupt, because the system is designed to preserve itself, and managers are part of the system. Your complaint gets filed. You get a follow-up that says, "We've addressed the situation, but what they addressed was the paperwork, not the behavior." And now something worse has happened. Your boss knows you complain. HR might promise confidentiality, but investigation requires questions. Questions reveal the source. Your boss connects the dots. And now you're the person who went to HR. That label is sticky. Not officially. Nobody writes it in your file, but it changes how you're managed. You get fewer opportunities, fewer private conversations, fewer chances to recover the relationship because your boss now sees you as a risk. Someone who escalates, someone who might do it again. So what do you actually do when HR isn't the answer? First, understand what HR can and cannot do for you. HR is effective when the issue involves a clear policy violation. Something documented in the employee handbook, discrimination based on a protected class, sexual harassment with evidence, retaliation after a formal complaint, wage violations, safety issues. If your situation falls into one of those categories, HR has to act because not acting creates legal exposure. But if your problem is a bad manager who plays favorites, gives unclear feedback, takes credit for your work, or creates a toxic atmosphere, without crossing a legal line. HR is unlikely to intervene in a meaningful way, not because they don't believe you, because the tools they have aren't designed for that problem. Second, if you do go to HR, go with a specific ask. Don't walk in saying, "My boss is terrible." Walk in saying, "I'd like to request a transfer to another team," or "I need clarity on the company's policy regarding performance feedback documentation." Give them something actionable that doesn't require them to choose between you and your boss. Third, build your own documentation before you ever step into HR's office. Emails, screenshots,